The United States Air Force is the most powerful military machine in human history. They have the best radars, the fastest jets, and the most money. By the early 2000s, they were confident they could stop any air attack in the world. They knew the British Royal Air Force very well. They had flown against British jets for decades. They knew the Tornado was an old, low-flying bomber. They knew the Typhoon was a new, agile fighter. To the American commanders, these were known threats, solvable problems. So, when a major joint exercise began and the American radars picked up 2 British signals, nobody panicked. One signal was hugging the ground. The other was climbing high. The Americans thought, easy. We will send fighters to kill the high one, and then we will deal with the low one. It seemed like a standard textbook scenario. But the Americans were wrong. They didn't realize that they weren't looking at 2 separate jets doing random things. They were looking at a carefully designed trap. The Tornado and the Typhoon were working together in a way that would break the American defense timeline completely. What followed wasn't a loud, explosive battle. It was a quiet humiliation. Without firing a shot, the British jets managed to overload the American decision-making process, leaving the world's best air defense system chasing shadows. How did they do it? Welcome to Hidden Valor. Today, the story of the perfect trick. To understand the trap, you need to know the players. On one side, you had the Panavia Tornado. By modern standards, it was a dinosaur. It was heavy, loud, and not particularly fast at low altitude. But it had one terrifying capability. It could fly automatically at 200 feet above the ground. Flying this low is dangerous. One mistake, and you hit a tree. But the Tornado was built for this. Its job was to hide in the ground clutter, flying so low that radar waves could undistinguish it from a truck on a highway. Its weapon wasn't speed. It was stealth through terrain. On the other side, you had the Eurofighter Typhoon. This was the beast. It could climb straight up like a rocket. It was loud, fast, and impossible to ignore. The British plan was simple but brilliant. They would use the Typhoon as a distraction and the Tornado as the knife. Americans operated on a doctrine of air dominance. Their rule was, control the high ground first. If you see a fighter jet high up, you kill it immediately so it can't shoot down your AWACS or bombers. Once the sky is clear, then you look down to find the bombers. The RF knew this rule, and they decided to use it against them. The exercise began. The Tornado took off and immediately dropped into the dirt. It hugged the valleys, staying completely silent. No radio, no radar, just speed and terrain. Simultaneously, the Typhoon launched and climbed rapidly to 40,000 feet. It didn't try to hide. In fact, it wanted to be seen. It flew aggressively right into the heart of the American radar coverage. Inside the U.S. control room, the screens lit up. Contact! High altitude! Fast mover. The American controllers reacted on instinct. They saw a high-threat fighter jet charging at them. This was the priority. They ordered their F-15s and F-16s to commit high. Dozens of American fighters lit their afterburners and climbed to intercept the Typhoon. They were focused on the threat they could see. And this was the mistake. While the entire American defense network was looking up, nobody was looking down. Below the radar horizon, the Tornado was racing forward. It was invisible to the high-flying American jets because their radars were pointed at the sky, hunting the Typhoon. It was invisible to the ground radars because it was hiding behind hills. The Typhoon pilot played his role perfectly. He didn't engage the Americans. He didn't run away. He just hovered on the edge of the fight, acting threatening enough to keep them interested, but far enough away to waste their time and fuel. He was buying time. Every minute the Americans spent chasing the Typhoon was a minute the Tornado spent getting closer to the target. Confusion started to spread in the U.S. command center. They had thrown their resources at the Typhoon, but the high-altitude fight wasn't resolving. Meanwhile, the low-altitude picture was getting fuzzy. They would get a brief blip of the Tornado, and then it would vanish again. Is there something down there? A controller might ask. Ignore it. Deal with the fighter First was the standard doctrine. But the clock was ticking. By the time the American sensors finally got a solid lock on the Tornado, it was too late. The Tornado had already reached the point of no return. The American fighters were now high up, miles away, and running low on fuel from chasing the Typhoon. To stop the Tornado, they would have to dive all the way back down to sea level, which takes time they didn't have. The Tornado flew right past the imaginary defensive line. In a real war, it would have dropped its payload and destroyed the target before the Americans could even fire a shot. The timeline had collapsed. The British jets had successfully split the American defense in half. In the debriefing room, the mood was serious. The Americans realized they hadn't lost because of a technical failure. Their radars worked. Their missiles worked. They lost because they were outthought. They had treated the two British jets as separate problems. They didn't realize they were a part of one single system. The Typhoon wasn't there to win the sky. It was there to steal attention. The Tornado wasn't there to fight. It was there to survive. The RAF proved that you don't need the most expensive air force to win. You need coordination. By forcing the enemy to react to what they could see, they blinded them to what was actually dangerous. It was a lesson in cognitive warfare. If you can control where your enemy looks, you can control what they miss. Britain didn't overpower the US Air Force. They simply out-timed them. If you enjoyed this story of brilliant tactics, smash that like button and subscribe to Hidden Valor. Which jet would you choose? The low-level bomber or the high-flying fighter? Let us know in the comments below.